Everybody, it's time for match number 3 here for EMEA at the GLL Apex Legends series. The competition is steadily coming to a close, and today we've seen some new challenges rise after yesterday was dominated by a few. It's pretty damn close. LG rising to the top. They are the cream of the crop currently. However, it's definitely up in the air. Below that, things are so tight, and we're about to find out how things pan out. My name is Paul, I'm with desk host Glitter on set.
What's up?
Did you just dab?
I dabbed at the end of 2019. I'm sorry, guys.
You managed to squeeze it in, though. I mean, come on. You're kind of relevant.
I'm sorry. Do you think one day the dab is going to become cool again? Or?
No.
It was like a hipster thing to
Wait,
do. Yeah.
Was
you just
it
go
ever...
to Shoreditch, East London, and
everyone
just
started
go
dabbing, yeah, and everyone's like, wow, that's really cool. I haven't seen that in a while.
Was it ever cool to begin with?
Yeah.
That's debatable, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it was when Panda by Designer was a very big track in the rap and... Apex Legends, everybody. All right, guys, game number 3. With the score tightening between second place and around 8th, I think it was, that we saw. Which of those teams do you expect to see fire off in the 3rd game of day 2, match number 9?
I really want to see Pepega Squadron do something. I really do, and I think they're capable of it. They almost, after he almost had it there right at the end with that self-res. If he was able to get that Phoenix kit off, I think he actually could have put enough damage to deter them off of him while they were fighting and maybe been able to clean up a little bit.
Do you think he could have risen from the ashes on set?
It's a tough one, isn't it? He did, again, it's one of those situations where he's kind of banking on someone else making a mistake, not hearing that audio cue, maybe thinking, timing that Phoenix kit for when a battle starts, so that maybe that audio cue isn't as prominent in the fight and he can kind of get back involved. But he did pretty much everything he could have in that situation. It's just one of those unfortunate circumstances. But as far as your question was concerned, you know, what team is going to be able to make a push in that little bracket we were talking about? Honestly, no idea, because we didn't see these teams performing yesterday that are performing today, and we are seeing a fall-off from some of those teams that are performing yesterday to today. So it really does feel like it's a game-by-game basis now for those teams. Luminosity are the team who have been most consistent, which is why they're at the top of the table. Reciprocity have to be the team who are most worried about the teams who are picking up form behind them. But going back to what I've been saying the whole time, there's one team, which is Wizen, who have been consistent but still haven't got a win. If they manage to pick up a win and Champions banner, they're going to pick up points, they're going to pick up a lot of confidence, and going into these last 3 games, if they do it in this game, it really is theirs to win, potentially, if they can just link that one thing they're missing from their game at the moment, and that's just that one win.
Do you think LG at this point have to have disastrous results over the next 4 matches to not be in contention for first place? Glitter?
I don't know necessarily about disastrous. Honestly, I think if they have 2 bad games and any one team has a consistent 2 games, it starts to level out right there. I mean, they have on Rec, they've got like a 20-point lead on Rec right now. So if Rec has a strong game and say LG gets knocked out first, you've even mentioned it. There is an average in EMEA of about 20 points a game, and then that gap is closed, right? Yeah. You know, so it can go any which way right now.
It can happen as well. That's the thing. We saw it yesterday. Sentinels, they were taken out almost immediately by Team Secret when they've been dominating absolutely every game that they'd been in, pretty much in the first 6 games we saw in the North American region. TSM again were knocked down as one of those teams that we always talk about making it towards those end circles. First team out the equation. LG have to be so aware of that potentially happening to them in those next few games, because if it does in just one game, that's a game where that 20-point lead is completely evaporated. It doesn't exist. All the hard work they've done before means absolutely nothing.
Awesome. Our casters, I think, are pretty much ready with the game. Just shortly going to get underway. Yeah, not just yet. Oh, no, they are ready. Perfect. Guys, we're going to head over to Dreadnought, who's in his feelings, and, of course, Bravo, the man that's finished his Swedish treat. Let's find out if he enjoyed it.
Paula, we're always ready.
Yeah, first of all, we're always ready.
No one's ever waiting on us.
Yeah.
We're ready for games at any time, and we're going to jump into game number 9 for Europe now. The Tunnbrödsrulle is amazing. I actually just hit the mashed potatoes in it. We didn't hit that it has mashed potatoes, but the thing's delicious, and yeah.
Every time you say it, I hear true, like a slurred version of True Umbrella or something. True Umbrella.
I've been told repeated times by Swedish nationals that is perfect.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You just heard it.
He literally just spoke to us. That is absolutely flawless. You know,
I appreciate it.
You're one of them. You know, welcome to the family, mate.
What can I say? It's been a fantastic event so far, and of course, the games have been no exception. As you just heard on the desk, a few questions yet to be answered. I think the biggest one is, what does LG have in store right now, sitting at 84 points?
Yeah.
Their trajectory so far would suggest that even with a below standard LG placings, that they are still going to be looking pretty good for first place contention.
Yeah, I think for me, I look at Luminosity and I don't have very much fears for their success in the remainder of this tournament. I think they had enough big wins yesterday that I look at it and I just go, they're the only team that, no matter what, I have faith in. Like, you literally can show me any image, any circumstance, and I go, they might be able to do this. And there's no roster I really feel that for. Maybe at moments TSM, but I feel like when things are clicking.
Right.
And that isn't always the case. So for me, I just go, just keep playing. There's no way. You're already in such a grand position. Like, you have to truly mess up.
We were joking last night after the European matches, but it feels like that whenever we tune in, whether it was 789 in Poland or Luminosity Gaming, that they are in an area of the map that is low ground.
Yeah.
There are puddles and weeds, and they are all looking up and wondering, how are we going to get out of this situation we put ourselves in? Sometimes it's just as Desu, sometimes it's just Kasanya, and somehow they get out. So like you said, that is a team that we expect to be performing as we get ready here for game number 9.
And quickly, before things get too wild, on the note of Luminosity, I think a guy, we don't talk about individual player performances and things that heavily when talking about Apex Legends, and we talk about them all being impressive. But I feel like the guy who gets often not talked about is Exons on this roster. And again, Exons is the Gibraltar throughout this tournament. And again, I want to bring it back to the games that we saw yesterday, assuming that we got to hear a broken lobby watching Soar back out. But what they did with, remember I used the term, he never Gibraltar's first.
Yep.
Right? He's always very, very patient on his decision making, on when he throws down his dome, when he throws down his ultimate. And again, it's the thought process of, if you're the last one to do it, you're likely having the advantage in a situation.
Right.
And I just want to use that. Also, the bobbing and weaving we heard the analyst desk talking about in game 1, that is Exons. He is the man setting that stuff up. So I just want to make it very clear that they truly are a trio, each one doing their own kind of column.
Right. I think we're starting to see a certain nuance to how Gibby is played. Right. I think we know in general that teams are going to use that dome to get certain places where they, of course, need cover where it is not, but it's also the timing of that dome that has proved to be a big difference maker, specifically in the late game, when you're expecting other domes to go up as well.
Yeah, no, and that roster, just everything they've done, I have no fear for them. Whereas with some of the others, especially those with higher performances yesterday, I do have a lot of concerns about. Reciprocity is one that I don't think we have enough case evidence to really say this is where 100% we think they should fall, to where I go, they're just been a pleasant surprise, and consistency seems to be a bit of a miss in day number 2. I think for Alliance and Kick, there's a little bit more responsibility on what we could expect coming out from them, and they aren't performing here in day number 2, which is commonly a trend that we see when looking at these kind of tournaments. The team who wins, you aren't going to always hold your own in the top, and very few teams always place top 5, always do well.
Right.
And so I think that's the one outlier that I would still say here for LG when I look at them and I just go, you're the only ones doing that.
Yep, absolutely, especially in their region. One of the things certainly to note, I think if we do still look at that top 5, we still have Alliance and Wizen being qualified teams. They're breaking into that top 5. Pretty special for them. But you and I were looking at Wizen's stats across the board throughout the days, and you caught something pretty interesting about Wizen's, especially their kill column.
Yeah. It was because just I think it was 2 games ago we were talking about Wizen's sitting at the top. Out of all 7 teams at that point in time that were sitting at the top, they're the only ones who didn't have an actual win.
Right.
But their placements were always sitting at the top. So they didn't win, but they didn't play. So you go, what about their kills, right? And you look at it and you go, joke's on you. Everybody near them is 2 times the amount of kills that they have too. Yeah. So it is a raw placement-oriented team. And so they run with 13, and then that last game that they pull out, they end up having 10 kills. So basically 10 out of the 23 kills they have in the entirety of the tournament actually came out of that last game. So it's like, is this roster like cutthroat? Like, are they ready to just unleash the hounds?
Yeah, you have to think if they start slaying out, the numbers are going to see from them will be outrageous. So definitely over the course of these next 4 games in Europe, one thing we're going to be keeping an absolute eye on is Wizen. And are they realizing, wait a minute, if we slay a little bit harder, like you and I talked about earlier, if we slay a little bit harder, 10th place and on, especially getting to that 5th place time, if we can, when there's 10 squads left and when there's 5 squads left, if during that time we can squeak out a few more kills while still sticking to kind of their playbook, I think we could see a big performance from them. So we'll certainly be keeping an eye on not only their POVs, but also the kill feed to see if that's the case.
Yeah, and as a little side project for anybody at home who's a really big Apex Legends fans, I would raise a question where I think we've been talking about this a lot. I think you'll find a pretty interesting correlation would be how many of the kills for teams that are successful people on the top half of the bracket actually find a majority of their kills, or how many kills are found between the placements of 20th through 5th, right?
Yeah.
Or I'd be willing to even ask the question, not even 5th, let's say 7th or 8th. Within that positioning time lane, with those amount of squads available, how many of the kills actually gained were there? Because I think the conclusion we've come to is it feels like it would have to be somewhere near 50 or even higher % of the kills that you got come in that window to escalate onward.
Absolutely, and especially another, I think even the other side of that coin is because, as you pointed out, so many teams are going to come away from each game disappointed in the points that they have, right? Because, of course, from both placing points and both kill points, those are always going to be stacked heavily towards the top. That leaves a lot of teams in that 10th to 20th place, some of them coming away with 0 placement points.
Yeah.
The kills that they're able to eke out will be the difference maker. If you think of each team, each top team, kind of give them a few bad games, if you will, whether or not they got 3 to 4 extra kills in those performances where they dropped early can be the difference maker in a leaderboard where we're only talking about 12 total games over 2 days.
Yeah, no, it's one of those conversations points that I feel like I could this whole formatting and the thought process, I could talk for way too long, and I always try and avoid the conversation because I feel like it's one of those let me bring my pie chart up really quick so I can show you, right? It's hard to visualize, but I think the craziest thing that if you haven't taken the time to look at some of the formatting elements through Apex is that, if you're 16th through 20th, you have 0. If you're 11th through 15th, you have 1. And if you're 6th through 10th, you get 2 points, which means I could get 20th every game, get 2 kills, and if you didn't get any kills and didn't get 5th, I beat you. I tie you. Yep. And that's crazy to think about how much easier it is to get 2 kills than it is to hit that 5th placement, right?
Yeah,
and so when you look at that and you look at how few those points are actually worth up until that 5th threshold, it seems very, very common that those points have to be coming from elsewhere. Also, and it's even crazier when you consider that these points are relative, which is very different than most, BRs that have that in games with RNG, but it's a relative point system, not necessarily an objective, victory versus loss system, which changes the maths out of it all. It's not just a result coming in a abstract kind of binary result.
Yeah, and it has to change the way the teams play, because just like you said, right, if I was playing in this type of game with these type of teams, I'd be pretty happy if I was consistently breaking top 6.
Yes.
On the lowest end, that only guarantees you 2 points. If you're getting 2 points every game, you will be at the bottom of the table, regardless of where that actually nets out. It's not viable. Even if you're placing top 6 every game, it just further proves the point that teams need to continue to blend that. How are they blending that aggression and that placing?
Yeah, and if anybody is the embodiment of this conversation, it is Wizen. It really, truly is. Whether you look at the outlier results we just got from them and the point influence that benefited them, or if we look at before that case point and how where they sit, though it is impressive, you quickly put together the math and you go, all it takes is you not being able to do that one game, which is very, very likely, and the points are non-existent. This team cannot contribute.
We're going to look at Lazarus here off of the break. Headed to Thermal, dropping right here is Kashera at Thermal Station, and what we've seen so far, not really a lot of action down on this side of the map. Thermal, not really an area where you're going to see too many teams dropping across North America and EU. I think you're going to see 2 teams at most, typically. Sounds like, though, we may be having the players jump into another game, so we'll go ahead and get ready for that one. I was already excited for it. You saw me. I was getting ready.
What other, high-end topic while we get this next remake would you like to discuss here today, Bravo?
I'd say right now, I think one of the interesting things we've seen so far, and there were some questions coming into yesterday, is how many drops are kind of claimed territory across both regions. And it seems so far, with a few outliers, that teams are really sticking to their drops so far. Now, granted, that's also day 1 where that is going to be a safer bet. The question is now, as we head into the last 4 games for Europe and also the final 6 for North America, if that will be shaken up. Your thoughts on drops so far?
This is another long topic, but I will say, okay, so I often think about this thought process as being a guy who's a professional mobile player. I often think about if I knew the composition of my opponent had a very heavy outlier on a certain composition I could select, but I've never practiced it. Is it in my best interest to pick the composition or play what I knew and take what my practice had introduced to me, right? And I had learned, often the feeling of I would rather choose what I knew. And I always found that so interesting because I've set myself on the back foot, but it always feels so much better. And I think it relates heavily to humans' loss aversion. Yeah. We would much rather take very little risks and do things that we know and feel a sense of comfort with the odds stacked against us, then we would take a risk with chances of actually gaining something monumental.
Right.
And so because of that, I think that's what you see with some level as to why this agreement has come in. You need a level of comfort, because losing with that comfort is better than possibly winning without it. And it's a very hard idea, I think, to get, because if you ask every pro player, what's your goal? And the answer is to win.
Yep.
And I will do whatever it takes to make that happen.
Yep.
And the answer is, joke's on you, we're humans are animals and we're all stupid. And we do the same thing as like the remainder of the animal kingdom and rely on some of those things. And so I view the gentleman's agreement as byproduct of our loss of version. We want that comfort, and we would rather do that than go, we're going to screw you over, because then we start doubting ourselves. It's not about what we impacted on you, it's how we impacted our faith within ourselves.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of variation we saw in North America, purely because with NRG not playing in the tournament, that kind of opens up Lava City, high-tier loot, not just high-tier, but you've got vaults nearby, you've got easy balloons out, guys are bouncing to mid-map quickly, things like that. That's, I think, is some of the variation we've seen in North America. However, in Europe, I think we've seen teams largely sticking to, and I think there's maybe no greater evidence than LG's reign of the top right of the map.
Yeah, and it is a little bit weird to be able to look at some of those drop decisions coming out from Europe, because I did expect them to maybe be a little bit more weighted on specific sides of the map, even with the idea of like, just for the higher loot sake, and mainly because the thought process of not wanting to take any risk. The top right seems infinite risk, right? Luminosity seems like they set themselves on one of the highest stacked games possible by going with a double split on the top right corner of the part of the map. And you can, that's where the argument would be, well, was the loot worth it? And I think that they've made a very heavy argument is, heck yeah, brother.
I think,
but there is no yes or no. That is absolute.
I'm excited to take a look at, specifically after this event, Luminosity VODs, because what I want to try to get an idea of is just how important has the fact that they have been able to grab 2 high-tier loot zones for free every game. Is that why they have 84 points on the board, or is it more late-game decision-making that is really getting them there? Of course, it is going to be a combination of both, but I really want to get an idea of just how much weight should I put on their early loot leading to success.
I would say, if you were to ask me right now, and again, I think it takes the VOD to really come up with a conclusion. My first instinct would be, it is not their loot. It really is their play.
I would agree from what we've watched.
I think the Skyhook Gen play, that whole game, was a really great example of like why Luminosity is different than a remainder of the teams here. But at the same time, I would look at that last game and I say that's the first sample size of Luminosity making an uncharacteristic decisions. We were talking about it on them choosing to opt into the gap between Capital City and the choke, and they opt in towards those crates. And though they knew that was the final circle, that's where I would raise the question of like, were they willing to take on too many challenges at that point in time and risk that because it was the better end game, though maybe not the easiest to transition? Like
certainly. I mean, even the fact they stayed alive as long as they did when they're getting pressured from Capital City outskirts, they're getting pressure from the choke, they're getting pressured from the west. I think just to see them survive as long as they did was pretty incredible.
And that would be a moment where I would look at that and I go, that's a team relying on the fact that they are out-resourcing people. They are willing to take the dumb choice, in theory, the weaker choice, in order to make what will translate to be a far superior one, because we have the resources to make this mistake, right?
And I think the one thing we can absolutely take from their looting early game Epicenter and Refinery is we have, correct me if I'm wrong, we have never seen them come under-looted out of an opening the way we've seen, say, TSM or Complexity on all white armor mid-game.
No, I don't.
So that is kind of the guarantee they get, is maybe not they come out with S-tier loot, but they are going to come out with some blues and purples, and they're going to be ready to play.
I think the area where they probably gain the most amount of value that we wouldn't be able to appreciate at first glance will actually be in healing resources. I think because not only the rarity of loot, but I want to say the quantity. When you consider a Refinery with the double cylinders with high loot spawns, 1 in each corner, with the dead center itself, that already is like 9 different spots with 6 pills in the back, not even considering the sides, and inside the actual factory itself, which is massive, just like the one in Sorting Factory. And that's one person getting all of those resources. Same with the Epicenter. And because of that, they're getting the high-end loot to be like, here's my shield. But then they're also stacking, because the sample size sell, which then leads to that dead center fight to suddenly be not unapproachable, especially when you have a Gibraltar. And I think that's a part of that thought process coming out from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I was going to say the same thing. That's probably a good idea of why they're able to sustain for so long, but also the proper timing of, not only the timing of their Gibby Qs, but also in getting the dome up, but also the mistiming that we saw when the team's trying to throw that ult down as well. But like we said, they're leading now 84 points on the board for them. Quite a gap. Reciprocity EU in second place with 65 points on the board. As we said, Alliance in third with 59. It's a pretty close set of points, though, if we take a look between Alliance all the way down to Wizen. So 3-4-5 is a 59, 58, 58. Lots of room in that midsection for teams to sneak into the money there.
Yeah, I would say if we're looking at anything here that stands out the most out of today so far, and I'm not sure if the analyst desk have really talked about how big of a shift this was. You and I talked about Na'Vi. Looks very different every glance we've gotten in the mid game. We left yesterday, I think they were
17th.
16, 17.
Right, yeah.
They're 9th right now, and that's after 2 games. And the fact that they're even a part of the conversation of likely placing top 5 in this tournament, which looking at these numbers, no reason to not believe they keep performing the same way, that they would not fall into that category. That to me goes, what in the heck happened either yesterday or going into the day that changes that for Na'Vi? Because we haven't seen a team ever have that drastic and polar of results.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that full leaderboard now for EMEA here at the GLL Apex Legends Series, day number 2 for Europe. We were just talking all the way down to that third place Alliance, but you also mentioned VP is the one they're in 8th, and just behind them is Na'Vi that Dread and I were just speaking about with 46 points on the board, and with a few games, certainly we've got to call them now within striking distance of those top placings. Anyone else that you're watching, I think it's easy to say Na'Vi is the biggest change that we've saw from yesterday.
Sorry, I didn't hear that last part. Say that again?
I gotta say Na'Vi probably the biggest change that we saw from yesterday.
I think if it's not Na'Vi, it would be Gambit as well. When we consider Gambit was heavily struggling, I compared Gambit and Gamers Origin as side by side, kind of like in the success and a lot of hope, when both were kind of struggling. But Gambit clearly finding themselves on the top half, whereas Gamers Origin have not. And I'd just like to say thank you for everybody at home for your patience, as again we are just waiting on a remake here for our game number 3 of day number 2, game 9. In total, going to be kissing just the 75% threshold here.
Absolutely. Also want to, also give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in all weekend long here. The inaugural event for the GLL Apex Legends Series. Great to have our first event on World's Edge, as you and I talked about all day yesterday. So many things to look out for, and I think we've been pleasantly surprised just in terms of the variety that we're seeing in game. I think there's a few things that we maybe expected. For example, we're not seeing a lot of charge rifles brought in. That's kind of what you were expecting in terms of how long-range battles have changed since the nerfs and the patches.
Yeah, I did think that we would see more than we have. I do.
Me too.
It's where I will say I'm not sure if it's giving the weapon a fair credit, because I do think it definitely has trade-offs. And I also think that the weapon is significantly better on land than it would be without land, due to the fact that it is a hit scan. Hit scan on land is gross, right? Which makes you kind of inhuman. So it likely would be on a land circumstance better than an online event such as this. But I'm surprised. It's nearly neglected.
Right. And we saw a tiny bit yesterday, but also, of course, very end circle dependent. But I think we've seen enough end circle variety over the course of the game so far that I agreed, certainly coming in lower than we expected.
We get a Western Skyhook. That's where if we get a Western Skyhook circle with the Sniper's Ridge, that's where I want to go. Is anybody going to try and prioritize a longbow, or are they even going to hold off on that? Because eventually the circle, it always will hit the point where those weapons won't thrive. But those are some of the best 4 up until basically round 7.
Right, yeah, going to be looking out for that, of course, throughout the rest of the day. We still have seen, we're going to have to find out between whether it's the Apex Legends wiki. Of course, got to give a shout out to also Battalion for all the help he does with stats for events. I'm really looking forward to seeing pick rates and comp rates at the end of the weekend for both regions. Not only how those two compare, but even just in general how those are across the board, because I think it's fair to say my ballpark's probably close to the 50-50 across the regions, maybe a 60-40 Gibby. What about you?
I think 60-40 Gibby in favor of EMEA.
Yeah.
I think that NA has been a little bit more kind of avoiding him, but yeah, it's fair to say it's close enough.
Yeah, it certainly is.
We were told that it may be a little heavier towards that lopsidedness on the EMEA favor.
Let's go ahead and listen in now with the source side off of their drop.
No one crashed. Pog.
Pog in the chat. So Skyhook drop here for the side of SOAR, which is interesting because we have seen them in scrims leading up to the event that they also have had Capital City drop. So now opting for the Skyhook drop, and it's a spread one here with RPR up to the train station.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It's a party on the Mirage Voyage.
Hey, let's go, boys!
Here we go. This is what we came for.
You're right.
If you have not been a part of the Mirage Voyage party, this is it. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. It's a good time on this ship. It's over now. Hope you enjoyed it.
Because they have path, they know where to move.
Who knew Mirage was the life of the party, man? I guess he did.
He did. Oh, he
knew. Havoc's another weapon here that's been trickling its way in day number 2. That was near completely a miss in day number 1. And that's a part of the conversation of to land or not to land kind of deal. Havoc was one that we saw at the preseason invitational go from nearly not picked to one of the higher priority due to that lane argument and being able to be so accurate with it. Potatoes here at Train Yard.
Things are just as nutty as you'd expect any Train Yard drop to be, whether you're playing in pubs or ranked or here at the Apex Legends series by GLL. It's a mess here for the Potatoes.
Oh!
The drop, and it's only Anarchy who has to pull something out. He gets the first kill, though.
Yeah, it looks like he's causing a bit of that after that knock. Seems like the other target sitting on top of this train car. He takes a trade into it, and they get the knock. Look at this. The Potatoes knock out the first squad.
All right, guys, we gotta watch out.
And keep everybody alive in the process.
They take out, this is the way they share the Train Yard, and the Potatoes showing some good signs of life. That's going to make Onset pretty happy. I know he's a big Potato guy. Cheers from him in the back.
Yeah, an audible woo just came out of nowhere.
He actually has a flag of Great Britain draped over his shoulders now.
Navi,
that's awfully strange. Where did he get that flag?
I just want to know, we were just talking about the charge rifle and how heavily neglected it had been and maybe this there, and we watched somebody drop a weapon to pick up the charge rifle. I doubt we're going to see Impulse keep with this long term, but if so, I'd love to see and try and explore some of the thought process as to why this may be the focus, as it is clearly a very, very southern circle, hovering what looks like just around Tree, maybe a bit north.
Absolutely. Navi, of course, the team we talked about quite a bit heading into this game. Combination of Belarusian and Russian players there on that Ukrainian organization. Only 4 games for them left on the day, and they need to string together some performances to make sure they cement themselves once again as part of that top conversation. They had a 2nd place finish at the Apex Legends preseason invitational, and they're going to need to perform here as well if they want to kind of maintain that status.
Noth and a G7 Scout. Name a better duo. The guy always has it in his hands, and this is actually before Double Tap. He was a pretty big Scout fan, so I just love to see it still continue, and again, how religiously he sticks with the weapon, and understandably so. He makes it look like a laser beam.
Yep, it's going to be a little bit of a south rotation for them here. We have also seen VP, Lava City drops in Scrim, so they're going to be comfortable with rotations in either direction, but they're actually going to go Dome. Which is interesting because looks like, first of all, they're going to maybe even get in Dome early just to see where this zone is going to go. But also it begs the question if there's really any other teams in Dome or if they're anticipating that they might have rotated out somewhere northwest.
Yeah, and that Dome circle creates, it was something that we were exploring a little bit before this event. There, if it comes to light, I'll talk about it more, but there's some unique Pathfinder opportunities there for anybody who does end up picking a path on some zip lines that you can kind of cheese around in. But here we do see Lazarus over at what is the tree, so pretty good positioning. We did get a second glance at that circle, and it did look a bit more towards the sorting factory. Somebody did have a beacon revealed there on the Pathfinder, but I didn't get a good enough glance to know for sure what our next tier would look like.
A little bit of some armor swapping here happening on the Lazarus side as we take a look at exactly where they are in the standings. Quite low for them, 16th right now, trying to, by the end of the day, put together a respectable finish. Also, we did see them at the preseason invitational where they took 37th, so once again, another team that's going to look to continue to string together some good performances for some points on the board by the end of the day.
Kick sitting on the offside of Dome. Just looking inward, it seemed like we did see 90s find one target here, running a flatliner in an EVA 8. EVA 8 hasn't been so popular in EU. We did see it come to light a little bit in North America. Yep. Probably going to be wanting to swap that out, if so. And then Wizen, this is more the southern kind of approach there.
And this is going to be dread for Europe. This is the first zone we've seen like this, end circle that could pull down this way. And really, it's actually the first time we've seen Dome action in terms of teams getting some early rooftops, which is going to be a lot of kind of peak shooting here early on. We really haven't seen this type of battle this far south for Europe here at the Apex Legends series.
It's such a rare one, and you already see the teams who haven't made it in, because Dome does have a high ground advantage, even though it's on the outskirts, right? It's kind of you take sorting, it dips heavily down in the ground, and then you have a slow climb up into Dome section. So anybody, once you drop from sorting, you're on the low ground trying to make your way in. And as you can see, there are a lot of nooks and crannies and kind of crevices and rocks to be able to use as cover. None are necessarily a consistent path towards safety.
And something, you know, a lot of players who don't drop south, which is going to be, of course, a considerable amount of players, and I mean everyone joining us watching from home as well. You know, I watch ACU stream in one scrim coming from Lava City. He's like, I don't even play the southwest of the map. I don't even know what's down there, right? There's certain teams that you just kind of play on set rotations that you're used to, especially with the way that a lot of circles pull. But something I did, and you and I looked at it together, is the amount of playable area in the Dome and the kind of Dome extended area. It's a little bit misleading. If you actually take that same map area and lay it over Capital City, it's about 25% larger than all of Capital City. There's a lot of place to play down here, and not a whole lot of cover.
I think Dome is the Alaska of World's Edge, right?
It is.
You look at a map and you have no idea how big that puppy really is.
Yep. And that's exactly what we did. We actually took a look at the map playable spaces and kind of compared it to other areas. And there's a lot down there at Dome, and there's a reason why things like Wraith portals are so essential to getting where you need to be. And I'm not even talking about super late game final circles. I simply mean getting across these large distances that you need to traverse. Expect a lot of teams to be bringing Wraith portals in there to make those transitions.
Shiv having a lot of confidence with this panicked rotation into Sorting Factory. Look at all the grenades coming through. No armor available for so many of the targets. Even Shiv himself struggling. Throws down a generator. Will stop the advance for a moment there of a couple of the grenades. We do see the attempt to jam the door there. Everybody trying to heal up. Somebody's got to get the cover. Shiv will complete there with the shields. Interesting to see him go with the cell rather than a med kit or something there. I guess it's not going to be available. There's the thought process. Syringe dropped by Anarchy. And somehow they make what seemed like a near impossible transition look okay.
And now we see Luminosity Gaming here using this balloon just north of Lava City to make a little bit faster movement down. They're going to get maybe into these Lava City buildings to make their way slowly over to Dome.
I really want to know if we're going to see Luminosity risk any kind of weird like circle damage. This is something that they sometimes are willing to do.
In the north.
Yeah, a little bit more than some of the other teams is make a very bold round 2, round 1 rotation, take a lot of damage and get around. That being said, they would probably need a path if they were going to make any of that happen because it is such a weird area of Dome. But we'll see what they do. Again, very interesting thought process, I feel like, here for this roster and a lot of what they make happen.
Yeah, anyone who's watched a lot of scrims at this level, whether you're catching some of the scrims leading up to this tournament, you will know that all of a sudden in Dome, things like individual rocks become really valuable really fast because of the limited amount of cover around the Dome extended area. Now, we don't mean this complex here. We mean kind of the area that extends in all directions around the Dome. Teams are forced into situations that would normally not be preferred, and also they're forced out of situations. And there might be no greater example on all of World's Edge than a place like Dome in terms of getting forced into situations that you need to absolutely battle your way out of.
And we do see with the Dome pickup too, bringing it in with that charge rifle focus we saw before. Almost everyone does seem to have some sort of range now, a little bit more than we normally have seen. Even if it's just going more towards the wingman to have something to throw at their direction. One of the subtle values of the wingman, just having the opportunity to just fling the damage, because if it does connect, 45, quite a bit of damage there.
This is one of the few times we're going to see teams come all the way south. We've seen, of course, a lot of Northern Hills. Anecdotally, a lot of pro players seem to say that really our end circles also really pull north. And now we even just saw a little bit ago, Reciprocity EU right around Capital City train tracks heading on hard edge of zone all the way down. So teams are really going to start to make their way in. Places like Sorting are going to get pretty packed pretty soon as they need to make their way even further south than that.
And you see that Dome world drop? It's like right in that low ground corner too. So if anybody's going to try and make their way into it, it's kind of hard to explain where it is, but it kind of sits right off on the side in a very tight choke that it will put you into low ground, but it may be worth. It may be worth. I don't know. But that wall right there is where a lot of some of those tricks I was talking about here with the path that you might make happen. The circle does look like it's moved far enough away that we aren't going to be too concerned with if anybody tries to make it work.
Ooh, and a little bit of shots coming in there. Ordak's trying to get away with the scouting and gets shoves back just a bit. Expect to see more of that. And we're back on board with Luminosity. They're making their slow crawl uphill.
Do you think if you're Pathfinder, you feel bad if you are basically built to be a scout and then they make a gun that's just called a scout? Because I feel like somebody's taking my role.
It's true, but he would only have good things to say.
Yeah.
Knowing Path.
Yeah, good luck, have fun, die in a fire.
Don't die.
Anyways, Devotion still here for Tisania, no surprise there. Along with the wingman backing it up, sitting near dead.
Guns are blazing as they try to break this down. Shields are cracked. Ooh. So now they also have the top of this building, and that looked all too easy for Luminosity Gaming.
How? I mean, the guy just pre-fires and just rips apart any door. He's not afraid. The push with the Devotion and the focus onto the Devotion is looking so very good
and also
for them.
Just taking all the damage there from the fences, and a good spray here from the Devo again. And they'll get that knock right away. They're going to keep making... I mean, this looks way too easy for LG. A really good kind of case in point of just how they rip apart opponents.
But that's going to set them back quite a bit. 69 damage goes through. There's the 33. A bunch of grenades. One target still alive. I don't think we've seen the broken armor. He can swap over. We'll go with the white. 1-on-1. Tisania versus whoever's got this blue armor. Not quite getting the crack. Trying to get the full retreat. Grapples right on out. Does he go for a res in this window? No. He's cracking him down.
Reads them like a book. Castagna trying to get the kill there, also expecting the drop. Let's see if he can finish this kill. Should be able to do it. Yes, indeed. Takes down JWM. And once again, the one-man show, Castagna winning that battle. And I have never seen someone predict a path grapple to a T like that. Just goes ahead, flies up the stairs, checks the back door, knows exactly where JMW is heading, and stays right in that. Of course, we're going to continue to see them as they push up that building, but what a confident push from them, just literally breaking the door down.
And the rate at which he has the fire come out from that Devotion, it feels like he's almost like pre-firing everything he does perfectly. Yep. It's very impressive to see that there. From Tisania, why it seems like he's able to breach so much there with that team. Na'Vi now controlling what is the southern corner here of the Banana Building over Sorting Factory. A lot of teams really trying to sort themselves out here, actually.
It is a place you do need to sort yourself out. No better place than the Sorting Factory.
Yeah, you gotta get it. You gotta get it figured out. Gotta get your poop in group.
There's a team here.
Taking a look here at Kick, and you hear there a little bit of freaking out at Dome, and hearing there's a team here, and that's the kind of open ground you're going to see in these Dome battles, and teams doing everything they can, frankly, to avoid it.
Able to break that fence is a big play to be able to move forward here for Shiv as he gets that flat line at a hip-fire position, but it wasn't very good as we just got eaten there by that shotgun, whether it be an EVA 8 or a Peacekeeper. Getting flinged now from behind. The Wraith has to basically bail on the remainder of the roster as it is Na'Vi, the one tracking them down. Breakthrough, easy thirst there. Maybe another kill opportunity as the trade doesn't work out too well there with that 301.
Yeah, it's going to be Potatoes that does go down. Eventually, it was Jazz who was going to get that final kill on that last player of Arcades of Potatoes.
To be honest, I am very concerned for everybody sitting here in Sorting Factory. We saw a glance at a couple of teams sitting in the Sorting Factory, and I thought that was just, you know, here or there with the rotation. The fact that we have a circle clipping that already, and you have to make your way all the way to Dome, time is not on your side. And I'm surprised to see, again, a team that's been really rising here in day 2, Na'Vi, to find themselves be basically the kings of Sorting Factory.
And if I'm honest, I think just so many teams coming through Sorting and being comfortable fighting at Sorting, right? There's maybe a little bit of bias there where this is kind of the pit stop. Rather than fighting, if you go to the west, lots of low ground. Once again, also, if you try to go all the way around to the right, the low ground and the water as well. So teams are more willing to fight in the higher ground area that they're a little bit more familiar with.
Yeah, and it's being showcased perfectly here. Everybody just transitioning to Banana Building top here. Pepega Squadron is the team there, threatening Na'Vi, who has found a way to gain their own footing into the low ground. And maybe somebody considering that thought process here is they do not force the hand there in the original angle. Maybe reposition or just a different angle of approach to Na'Vi.
And the numbers on your screen might tell you a little bit about just how different this transition is from what teams play if you look at across their entire swath of games. The fact that we have 11 squads left here tells you that this is a very different and a very challenging route for a lot of the teams coming all the way south to the Dome.
Yeah, we have seen normally at this time, I think it'd be fair to say 16, 17 teams would probably still be available. The next round moving into that, that's when we delve down to about the 11. So we're a round ahead in the pacing sense than we normally are. Na'Vi find themselves somebody here in the building. I'm going to assume it's still, on that ground floor of Banana. I'm guessing that was the original target. Pepega Squadron transitioned in. Either way, they want to be swift here with the decision-making. The round 4 is closing, and They're still in sorting.
They still are at sorting. They're going to have to come down. I mean, there's only one way down to the dome.
Oh,
it's going to be to traverse the low ground. Here they go. They now fly down. Na'Vi pushing in. Let's see if they can get this first knock. No, actually, they exchange knocks on both sides. Now 9 imps all the way down. Very low. He will go down. Na'Vi will go down early in 11th.
Yeah, that was a very big setback there. The fact that they were trying to force that fight. Again, I highlighted a little bit before. It felt like it was too much there. And Pepega Squadron going through and getting out of there faster, forcing them to go through that portal was actually very heads up from them on a macro sense.
Here we go, and as we take a look at exactly where we're going to be ending, once again, not really a surprise, lots of open territory. If you were to just throw a circle at the dome, there's a very good chance it's going to be in a pretty open zone. That's what we have here now, as we have 7 squads remaining. XSense gets taken down.
Ooh.
Off screen, didn't get to see exactly how that played out, but like you said yesterday, Dread, if there's one team that we know that can do pretty well in a 2v3, it's probably Luminosity.
But I do think that XSense is one of the guys that they can't lose compositionally speaking at this point in time. Dome is now moving away from the actual dome, making the open territory the primary focus. XSense is the Gibraltar of that roster, so it's going to be a pretty colossal setback in that moment here, as we're still continuing to see something we've basically seen since moment 1 here, with Noth just constantly throwing those scout shots out.
Also the VP, right, they're in 8th. We saw some really good performances from them on day 1, but right now coming in, rocking double whites. And, you know, not the setup that they themselves would choose going in here, but if they can squeak out something special, it'll keep them as part of the conversation around the top teams by the end of the day with 4 games left.
One big advantage of Gibraltar pairing with a Watson is it puts you in a position to alter the ADS shield to gain it, right? And kind of trickle with that shield with your own HP and your actual normal shielding, right, to gain the generator shields onto your stuff. It's just a resource management, min-maxing kind of dream that we got to see showcased a little bit there for Virtus Pro. 14 seconds out till we do see round 5 closing, and Lazarus is going to be amongst the first to get the pressure from that circle. They have to win this fight, honestly, yesterday, if they're going to get out of here. Yep. Do we see the Wraith portal? Oh, wow. This is insanely confident, Bravo.
Not seeing it just yet, and they certainly have taken a lot of time to set this up. We also saw LG making their move. We'll check on back with them in just a moment, but now also Reciprocity now trying to, once again, this is what we're talking about. Teams will set up in the least desirable of places here in Dome. This is really a test of which team can make the most out of the territory they are able to grab, and it's actually Kasanya who has moved over with this Desu. They have gotten through that portal and now trying to make the push as well.
But they find a way to be able to hold this high ground here and now drop together into the bubble. They find the first target, 50 damage with the first Peacekeeper, only 9 on the backside of that, 9 as well as he hits halfway through, and that's going to cost Sasanya his life, as Desu only having 1 tick of HP on her shielding, 100 HP when it comes to the health. Tries to get through. 1 Peacekeeper shot sets her down to 10%.
That's going to be it, and LG will drop at top 5. That will be the end for them. Also now, though, into the top 4. 3 squads left as well, as we do see Reciprocity EU go down. Now still, VP on double white armor, still in the game.
They're still in the game, but if they can move up and get this loot, they're likely going to change that white over to purple and or blue there, as they find themselves a knock on Hockeys. That's going to be the full wipe there. Only 1 squad remained, the looting opportunity through, and where the heck is the second squad?
There we go now. One team left for them, and like you said, they do get all of the swaps and able to get onto double purple armor. Now the gen does go down, and no waiting on this push. Actually, believe it or not, this is going to be Ferrari Beach.
Wait, Ferrari
Beach? 1v1 versus VP.
Wait, what? We haven't talked about them all weekend long.
Here's the finisher now, as they're able to get that Watson finisher and make easy work in the end of Ferrari Beach. But that's going to be a good performance from them. And also, like we said, VP going to be feeling good as Virtus Pro is your winners of game number 9 there. And they do it from some pretty unlikely circumstances as well. But got to give all the credit, first of all, to Virtus Pro. They were in 8th coming into that game. They get a very confident win, like we said, from pretty undesirable circumstances to squeak out that win. But Ferrari Beach, the Italian side, Mox 600, Streamy, and Educause able to get a 2nd place for them. Like you said, Dredd, they were at 18th.
Yeah.
So while it might not mean them getting into the top of the bracket, they've still got to be feeling pretty good there.
They made over 50% of the points that they've made in this entire tournament just by placing 2nd in that game.
Right.
To give you, that was a very big placement for them. Honestly, they're a team we haven't seen a lot of, probably because they have been struggling. Some of the first teams to kind of get knocked out, but we've gotten so few of a glance that the second you said that name, I was like, wait, what? They're anywhere a part of this last conversation?
When I saw Mox in the kill feed, I was like, Ferrari Beach? Ferrari Beach? Paula, go ahead and break down that last game for us. Pretty good stuff for Virtus Pro.
Virtus Pro getting their second win of the tournament. I think it's come at the right time. Glitter and Onset. Are you impressed by what you saw in that matchup?
I mean, yeah, they didn't really have a whole lot to work with in that end zone there. That final end zone was a little bit rough.
That was brutal. That was a brutal end zone. I think it was the most brutal end zone we've seen so far across both regions, every game we've had. Yeah. We sort of saw it move and we were like, this whole zone is over lava. Like, this is a tough zone to win and hold down. And it showed by the amount of teams that were dropping. There's not a lot of cover, not a lot of places to go. So a lot of teams were forced into engagements in those last few moments. But the fact that VP haven't been playing a Wraith didn't really play into effect there because they needed a path to set up zip lines to even stay alive. So the fact they got that final push, they timed it well because they were working with white armor until they got that final, just before they got their final kill to close the game out. They managed to get the wipe on the team to get those armor swaps and set them up, but it was a 1v3 situation, very easy for VP to close out.
You both mentioned to me that sort of ending. Well, I mean, Onset, you said you'd not seen that exact ending circle before, and Glitter, you were saying it's an unlikely place for a match to finish. And from my perspective, I could see, yeah, with all the lava, there's very little actual terrain to be physically stood on. And so how do the teams move around that source area? Is it just then you're forced into engagements, or are you trying to get creative with it as well, maybe using Pathfinder's zip lines? I'm not sure. Tell me.
It's a little bit of both, because there's only going to be so much area, like surface area for the teams to kind of work with. And before you get forced into that small zone, you want to take out other teams so that you're not fighting for the few spots that are available. And like you pointed out, the teams VP was using their Pathfinder zips to make sure they can kind of get across some of the areas that are just these rivers of lava, because you will take damage if you go anywhere near them. But I think that was why we saw at the end there so many teams went down so quickly, where Rec took out LG, and then then they went down to VP, and it all started snowballing because everybody was forced to make those choices.
Just before you continue with that thought, Onset, or whatever else you want to discuss, let's get the scoreboard up and see exactly where our teams ended up. Virtus Pro with just 7 kills, getting shy of 20 points, landing on 19. And Ferrari Beach, I was going to say Fenerbahce. Stop! No, stop.
This is not Turkish football.
Ferrari Beach with 17 points is second place. And Reciprocity, good on them. It's only 9, but that's a good scoring considering their overall placing on the leaderboard, which we'll see shortly. You're opening your arms on, so what do you want to say?
Potatoes, top 10.
Oi! Round of applause in the studio.
Thank you.
Alliance, also known as Alliance, they got 4th place, drawing with Rec Pack with 9 points. LG, 9 points. That's going to be good for them. That's going to extend their lead. And we can see that now with 92 points. So
VP
that means they're
though.
18. So Rec have improved their position. I think it was by 1 point. Yeah, because it was 19 points after the last match, if I'm not mistaken. VP in 3rd, guys. This is still tight. I think our teams need to start pushing on LG, trying to mess with their game if they want to really take affirmative action to stop them holding their lead.
It all comes down to potentially that last game and making that decision. Are you going to drop on Luminosity? Are you going to give yourself the chance to win the tournament? Are you happy with the 2nd place? Are you happy with the 3rd place? But something we just wanted to quickly discuss that we were super impressed with from LG was the push onto that building, where you saw Bravo was getting hyped in the fact that the last player alive managed to track that Pathfinder's movement and read him like a book, and he did. But it's something that I don't see enough sometimes from teams when there's a single building that needs to be contested. If you have the opportunity to push, put yourself in the shoes of the defending team, right? You've got your Watson ult down, you've got your fences up, everyone's watching one angle. That means that one player can be isolated in that situation. What LG did is they realized that situation, they all pushed the same door, they managed to isolate one player, and then they turn it into a 2v3 situation for the team that are trying to defend that building. Sometimes the ballsy plays are the smartest plays, and LG again have shown they're not afraid to take battles in what may classically and metagame-wise be seen as, difficult battles to win. But if you kind of think ahead and outside of that box a little bit, you can turn those situations in your favor. Excuse me.
Absolutely.
Glitter, do you want to add anything else before we head to a break?
I also did want to point out, though, that Alliance had a pretty strong showing in that game, strong enough that the closest we had from 3rd to 8th, they're now about 9 points above that. It's no longer separated by 1 or 2 points here and there. They're around 9 or 10 above that. So they did a good job starting to kind of push their own agenda as well.
Guys, thank you so much. As always, big shout out to our casters. All right, so LG still at the top. They had they had one win yesterday, and then they had another match where they had the most points. Today, it turns out that VP become our first team to get 2 first-place placements. Let's see how the leaderboard progresses over the final 3 matches for EMEA here at the GLL Apex Legends Series right after this break.